A grey dusk settles over Baltimore. The year is 1849. On the damp cobblestones of a quiet street, a man lies collapsed, barely conscious. His clothes are ragged, not his own. His eyes flicker open for moments, then close again. Passers-by whisper his name, Edgar Allan Poe, the poet, the storyteller of nightmares, now reduced to a frail shadow. He will never rise again. But to understand this final scene, we must return to the beginning, to Boston, to a fragile child, abandoned, yet destined to shape the very sound of American literature. Boston, January 1809. Snow piles against the doors of boarding houses and smoke drifts from brick chimneys. Inside one of these small lodgings, a child is born, Edgar Poe. His parents, David and Eliza, are actors. On stage they perform with passion and flourish, but off stage life is harsh. Acting is no path to wealth. David Poe, restless and insecure, struggles to hold steady work. Eliza, just 19, already supports the family by appearing night after night in theatres. She is gifted, admired, but exhausted. Within a year, David vanishes. Some say he deserts the family, others whisper of his death. By 1811, tragedy strikes again. Eliza falls ill with tuberculosis. At just 24 years old, she dies, leaving 3 children orphaned. The infant Edgar is taken in by John and Francis Allan of Richmond, Virginia. The Allans are wealthy merchants. Edgar gains security, a fine house, a chance at education. But from the very start, he is an outsider, a foster child in a home that never truly feels like his own. Richmond in the 1810s thrives with tobacco trade. John Allan prospers and young Edgar benefits. He attends the best schools where his talent for language begins to shine. He reads poetry, devours stories, and shows brilliance in reciting verse. But tension grows in the Allan household. Frances Allan is gentle, affectionate. She offers Edgar warmth. John Allan is stern, often cold. He believes in discipline and business, not poetry and dreams. Arguments erupt as Edgar matures, over money, ambition, and respect. In 1826, Edgar enrolls at the brand new University of Virginia. The campus is alive with promise, designed by Thomas Jefferson himself, but it is also rife with gambling and heavy drinking. John Allan provides Edgar too little money for food, clothes, or books. To keep up appearances among his peers, Edgar borrows, gambles, and soon sinks deep into debt. By year's end, he is forced to leave the university in disgrace. Relations with John Allan collapse. The rift between foster father and son will never heal. 18, restless and broke, Edgar enlists in the US Army under a false name, Edgar A. Perry. The uniform gives him stability. Stationed at Fort Moultrie in South Carolina, then Fortress Monroe in Virginia, he proves diligent, rising to the rank of Sergeant Major. But Edgar is no soldier at heart. His passion lies in words. In 1827, he secretly publishes his first book of poetry, Tamerlane and Other Poems. Barely 50 copies are printed. It passes unnoticed, yet it is the beginning. After 2 years, he persuades John Allan to help him secure an appointment to West Point. At the military academy, Poe excels in languages and tactics but grows increasingly rebellious. He neglects drills, skips duties, and is eventually court-martialed. Expelled, he turns once more to writing. In 1831, he publishes a new collection, Poems. This time, fellow cadets fund its printing. His reputation begins to flicker, faint but visible. A path forward emerges, literature, though it promises neither stability nor wealth. New York, Baltimore, Richmond, Philadelphia. Poe drifts between cities, often penniless, chasing opportunities in journalism and publishing. The 1830s are lean years. He lives with relatives, writes furiously, and submits stories to magazines that rarely pay. Yet these are also years of breakthrough. In 1833, He wins a prize for Mez Found in a Bottle, a tale of mystery and terror at sea. The award brings him recognition in literary circles. Soon after, he secures editorial work for magazines, sharpening his reputation as both critic and storyteller. But his personal life holds shadows. In Baltimore, he marries his cousin, Virginia Clem. She is just 13 years old. Their bond is tender, though strained by poverty. They move constantly, often struggling to afford rent or food. Still, Poe produces. Tales of the grotesque, of haunted mansions and shifting minds, begin to flow from his pen. His unique voice, blending gothic darkness with sharp intellect, starts to define him. New York, winter, 1845. The city moves with restless energy. Its streets are crowded, filled with the rattle of carts, the clatter of boots, the calls of vendors. Yet within the walls of a modest boarding house on Greenwich Street, Edgar Allan Poe bends over his work. His fortunes hang by the thinnest of threads. For years he has scraped for recognition, stories in small journals, poems published and forgotten, editors who admire his brilliance but distrust his volatility. Poe is clever, quick-witted, even charming in flashes, but he is also impatient, prone to quarrel, easily wounded. Each rejection cuts deeper, each failure feeds his sense of being cursed by fate. Now he places his hope in a single work, a long poem, a narrative carried by rhythm, sound and mood. He is deliberate in its construction. This is no accident of inspiration. He chooses each word with mathematical care. The rhyme is insistent, the refrains hypnotic. It is designed to haunt the ear long after it is read. The subject is grief, a scholar mourning his lost love, a midnight visitor tapping at the chamber door, a raven, black and unyielding, who perches above him and speaks a single word, nevermore. The poem's heart is Poe's own life, his years of loss, his parents' deaths, his foster mother gone, his young wife Virginia coughing blood in the next room. The raven's refrain echoes his own dread, that every joy he ever knows must end. When the raven appears in January 1845, it strikes like lightning. Newspapers print it in full. Readers across the city recite its lines aloud. Some call it genius, others deride it as grotesque, but everyone talks about it. At last, Poe is famous. Fame brings invitations. Parlors and salons open their doors to him. He lectures to crowds who are eager for wit and scandal. His dark, sharp features, his intense eyes, his cutting remarks, all feed the legend of the mysterious poet. Yet fame does not bring wealth. Publishers pay little. His name is everywhere. His pockets remain empty. Poe's struggle, even in triumph, never ends. Fame proves fickle. By 1846 the applause fades. The Raven has been endlessly reprinted, but Poe receives almost nothing for it. His quarrelsome nature burns bridges. Former allies turn away. Editors avoid his name. At home, tragedy deepens. Virginia is wasting away. Tuberculosis grips her, as it did so many in the 19th century. Poe watches helplessly as her strength drains. Her voice grows faint, her breath shallow. For years he has lived with the sound of her coughing behind closed doors, the sight of her pale face bent over embroidery. He tends to her with desperation, clinging to her as his last source of light. She dies in January 1847. Poe is shattered. The loss consumes him. He writes of women who die young, of love that slips through fingers like smoke. To him, beauty is bound always to death. Virginia's passing fixes that truth in his soul. After her death, Poe drifts. He moves between cities, Philadelphia, Providence, Richmond, seeking solace, seeking stability. He courts women who might offer companionship, perhaps rescue, but he drinks heavily, quarrels bitterly, collapses into despair. His reputation, once electric, becomes unstable. Admirers see brilliance, but also ruin. In Baltimore, 1849, he is found delirious in the street. Rushed to Washington College Hospital, he lingers for 4 days, incoherent, fevered, haunted by visions no one can name. He whispers the name Reynolds again and again, its meaning never explained. On October 7th, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe dies at the age of 40. No clear cause is ever given. Alcohol, rabies, beating, exposure. The mystery remains. What is certain is that the man who wrote of shadows, of death, of grief and beauty, becomes himself the subject of the same. His funeral is small, his grave unmarked for years. Poe's death does not end his story. If anything, it begins anew. His enemies spread lies, calling him a drunkard, a madman, a scoundrel. His supporters fight to defend his name. Over decades, his reputation shifts, hardens, grows. Today, his poems and tales are studied worldwide. The Raven, The Telltale Heart, The Fall of the House of Usher. Each bears the mark of his obsessions, loss, dread, the fragile thread between reason and madness. His style inspires generations, from French symbolists to modern horror writers. He is hailed as a father of detective fiction, a master of the Gothic, a voice unlike any other in American letters. But beyond the fame, one truth remains. Poe's art is inseparable from his life. His works are born from his grief, his longing, his desperate search for stability and beauty in a world that seemed always to betray him. He does not rest in peace. He lives in every line, every echo of nevermore. The raven still perches above the chamber door, and the poet, lost in shadow, remains with us forever. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door." This it is, and nothing more. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or Madame, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long, I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not an instant stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure, no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther then he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore, startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.